All right, we're going to go on to figures of speech. A figure of speech is a word or phrase that possesses a separate meaning from its literal definition, okay? A separate meaning from its literal definition. We hear them all the time, we're very used to it. One of the reasons why that English is such a hard language to learn is because we use lots of figures of speech that we all understand. But when someone from another country comes here, it's very confusing for them. So let's see some of the examples on page 289, okay? A simile is one of them. Look at this cartoon. It's Charlie Brown and, no, it's Linus and Lucy, okay? Look at the cartoon. I guess you're glad to have your stupid blanket back. Getting a security blanket back is like seeing the floodwaters recede. It's like a reunion with old friends. It's like a drop of water to a man lost in a desert. Getting your security blanket back is like coming out of a dark cave in the wonderful sunlight. It's like, and you see that Lucy's wrapped his blanket around his mouth. I still had 35 similes to go. So that's pretty cute. That's showing how wordy sometimes that American or English speech can be. Okay, let's take a look at the simile. A simile, and a lot of you don't know about this very last one, a comparison introduced with like, as, those we're probably familiar with, or if, okay? Her smile is like a summer day. If you see like, as, or if, it's a simile. Look at the examples on 289. About 3/4 of the way down the page. That Halloween night was as dark as the inside of a witch's hat. Pretty dark. After you've broken up with a boyfriend or girlfriend, every day feels like a cloudy, cold Monday morning. The next one. If he senses you don't know the material, our math teacher attacks like a shark. You see like in there? And the last one, that runner moves as gracefully as a gazelle. You see as. Those are all similes. Most of my students are pretty familiar with those. Okay? A metaphor is a comparison not introduced with like, as, or if. Okay? Let's take a look at the examples on 286. Very similar, not 286, 289. 289 is the correct page. Look at the top of 290. That's going to give us a better idea. The grade on the paper was a dash of ice water in my face. See, it didn't say it was like a dash of ice water. It said it was a dash of ice water. When Nate got up to speak, he was a mass of quivering jello. Didn't say like, just said he was. The warm honey of her voice melted my anger. Warm honey. Watching TV for hours, the children were glassy-eyed statues. You could very easily have said like glassy-eyed statues, but they didn't say that. That's a metaphor. The dancer's head was a rose on the slender stem of her neck. Okay? So that's how we work. No man or woman is an island. That's a metaphor. Doesn't say have, like, as, or if in it. Okay? You say, just a small change in words can totally change the meaning of something. You can say, he is my rock. What does that mean? He's very solid. He's very dependable. He or she leans on. She is my rock. Okay? That is a metaphor. If you say, he or she is a rock, that's not so complimentary, is it? And you just changed a couple little words in there. So think about like or as is a simile, and to say someone is something is a metaphor. Okay? Let's look at practice 3 on page 290, 291. Use a check to identify each figure of speech as a simile or metaphor. And then in the space provided, answer each inference question that follows. Okay? So you check if it's a simile or metaphor, and then you select one of the multiple choice. You can do those 5. I don't think you'll have problems with this, so we won't do an example of one, but stop the video and go ahead and work that practice. Practice 3 on page 290. Okay? Differences in graphs and tables. Those of you who are visual people, and I know we established quite a few of you are visual people, can appreciate this because you tend to look at these things more. That's the way you like to get your information. Graphs and tables combine words with visual representation. Works well for visual learners. Can present large quantities of information within a single table or graph. Let's look at page 295. 295. What is this graph about? Revolutionary changes in the workforce. And what you need to look at is the information. What are we looking at when we do this? What does this mean? What are the revolutionary changes in the U.S. workforce? Okay? On the left side, the vertical axis has 0 to 100. 0 at the bottom, 100 at the top. Those are the percentages. At the bottom, the horizontal one along the bottom, has years in increments of 20. So that tells you the little key at the top, the little tan-colored box at the top of the graph. White represents white collar, blue represents blue collar. White collar is one that typically works in an office. Blue represents blue collar, or someone who does more hands-on type work, and green is farming. Now, look at this. Who obviously has had more changes in the workforce? And when you see the dots at the end of those lines, those means it's projected. It's projected. We aren't at the year 2020 yet. So they're projecting if it continues to rise like it has, it'll continue to go up. Which one has the most revolutionary changes? White collar workers. Who has the least? Green, the farmers did. And the blue collar workers are in the middle. So you can say a whole lot in a graph or a table that would take lots and lots and lots of words to explain. So that's why these are really interesting. Okay, check your understanding about that graph under there and see which 3 inferences are most logically based on this graph. So take a few minutes, pause the video, and work those that check your understanding. Okay, let's look at that. Let's look at the answers on that. Let's read each one of these inferences and see which ones you got right. The workforce of 1900 was very different from the workforce of today. Does the graph indicate that? Sure it does. None of them stays the same. All of them either go down pretty dramatically or up pretty dramatically. So one would be one of the inferences. 2, before 1900, farmers made up the smallest percentage of workers. You have no way of knowing that. Number one, that it does not go before 1900, so you don't know. And you don't know what the other ones did either before that. Number 3, in 1940, the percentages of farm workers and white-collar workers were about equal. In 1940, can you draw an inference from that? No, because it doesn't indicate that. Number 4, in general, as the number of farming and blue-collar workers has decreased, the number of white-collar workers has increased. Yeah, pretty obvious with that one, right? Look how high the white one goes and the other 2 are going down. Number 5, in 1940, blue-collar workers made up of about 25% of the U.S. workforce. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't give you really a number, okay? Number 6, in the future, most U.S. workers are likely to be white-collar workers. Remember the 3 dots that I told you? The dots mean we haven't gotten there yet, but they think if it's based on what it's been doing, that's what it's going to do. That's called a projection. Yes, that is one. So the 3 inferences you can draw from that graph is number 1, number 4, and number 6. So I hope you are doing well on those, okay? All right. Inferences in graphs and tables. These are the advantages to graphs. They can present large quantities of information within a single table or graph. Just imagine how many words you would have had to have used to have described what we just talked about in that graph. They can also show comparisons and changes that occur over time. Very easy to do that. Some of us don't do so well when we try to read this information, but if we see something visual, we have the information. We have a picture in our head. So that's another important advantage. Now, to read a graph or a table, you don't just try to read the graph because you don't know what the graph is about. You don't have it translated into anything. So, you read the title to determine what the graph is about. Okay? Look on page 297. We'll go with that graph. Who votes for president? So first you read the title, page 297, that big graph that takes up the whole page. Who votes for president? So we're going to talk about voting and who votes for president. Check the source. Is it reliable? Somewhere in your graph, it will have the source. It's usually at the bottom. And it says, by the author, based on the Casper and Bass 1998, has a lot of things here, statistical abstracts and all of these. You can assume that the author of this textbook has already checked this out. But you might want to check it out. If you don't know that the source is reliable, you may have to check out your source and see if it's reliable. So you need to see if it is. I would assume, I don't really know, but I assume since it's in this textbook, it has been checked out. Read labels or captions at the top, side, or underneath that tell you exactly what each column, line, bar, number, or other item represents. Okay, so look at these. Look at all the things on here. What is it telling you? Look at the left-hand side. Well, first, look across the top. What does it represent? Every 4 years. That's how often we vote for a president, usually. If a president doesn't get removed from office or assassinated, every 4 years we have a new president. Okay? Overall, look at down the left side, the purple bar down the left. Overall, by age, by sex, by race, by education, marital status, labor force, and income, that tells you who's voting and why. So you can compare, look at the second one down, age, 18 to 20, or say 21 to 24. In 1988, 46% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted. But in 2012, how many percent of 18 to 24-year-olds voted? 21 to 24-year-olds, 40%. So it's gone down. So you can tell at a glance, look at all this information, that voting, fewer 21 to 24-year-olds are voting now than did in 1988. So that gives you a good indication. But you have to look at all of the information around the edges to get exactly what you're seeing in a graph, because different graphs represent different things. Read and understand the key or legend. This provides a frame of reference. For instance, in the workforce graph, the blue graph on page 295, what do they all represent? White collar, blue collar, and farming. By color. Color coding is a very popular way to emphasize what is being talked about in the graph. So figure out what colors and what different things in there mean. Okay, on page 295 is a check your understanding. We did that one, never mind. We did that, check your understanding. I jumped the gun on that, so let's keep going. You don't have to do that, we already did it. Okay. Any questions on this? If you have questions, you can't ask me right now because I'm being recorded. But you can email me, you can get on the discussion board. If you have any questions about anything, you can call the number on your syllabus. You can call me, it will go, I'm not in my office to get it, but it does go to the email. You can leave me a message and I'll call you back, okay? All right, you need to do your master practice now, okay? Your master practice, review test 4 on 303 to 306. So let's take a look at this. We've done this before, okay? I want you to read 303 to 306. Read the story in the purple box, read it carefully. And I'm going to have online this reading comprehension questions, the things that you do in class for me on paper. I have it online for you. So you just click on the heading and you answer the questions. It should not be a big problem because it's done exactly like your midterm was done. So you'll need to take some time to do that. That's at the end. We're at the end of this particular video for Chapter 7 in Inferences. So read this and do your review tests online. Okay? All right. That takes care of Chapter 7.